But a lot of the polls you put out, you're not picking West Virginia to do real well.
Yeah.
Apparently, what are your thoughts behind that?
Well, I mean, it's a lot. So the Neil Brown era is what in year 4. He's 17 and 18. It's just been real average. And there's just not a lot of high points. I mean, I remember with Dana Holgerson, West Virginia was a fun team to watch play. I mean, I know y'all weren't happy with the records and thought he should have won more, but West Virginia, like when they would come into Norman or when OU would go up to Morgantown, man, those were some fun, exciting games. And I thought with Neil Brown, he's an offensive guy coming from Troy. I really thought the offense wouldn't skip a beat.
Right.
Because the offense has been successful for over a decade. Even this whole century with Rich Rod, with all those guys. So to see West Virginia really struggle on offense has been just real kind of jaw dropping for me. And I thought last year was going to be the year that Dahey gets it together. I thought Letty Brown was a great running back. The defense was good. And it just didn't happen. And I think a lot of it was because of the quarterback play. Obviously, Dahey's gone. And JT Daniels comes in. You bring in a new offensive coordinator, Graham Harrell. Those guys have a prior relationship. So I know West Virginia fans are high on that. I'm not that high on JT Daniels. If you watched him, he did all right at USC. But, I mean, he's had a torn ACL before. Last year, we don't really know what was going on with I think it was his oblique that he pulled or tore or something, but I'm concerned about him staying healthy. And even his success at Georgia in 2020, it was against, in the regular season, it was against inferior kind of opponents in the SEC. It was against like Mississippi State, South Carolina, Mizzou. And then he really struggled when he played a good defense. He really struggled in that Peach Bowl against Cincinnati in 2020. So that has a lot to do with it. I'm not high on JT Daniels. You lose Letty Brown, great running back. I don't know who's. You could tell me. Is it Tony Mathis Jr.? Is it? I know Lynn J. Dixon's not there anymore. So who's going to step up there? Wide receiver. I guess Bryce Ford Wheaton, and shout out to him. He's trolled me a couple times on Twitter. He's a fun guy. But the offense has got to step up. I mean, they've been 119th, 85th, and 92nd in yards per play the last 3 years. That's got to get better. So it's the offense. I think the defense will be there. Jordan Leslie's a great defensive coordinator. I'm a little worried about the defensive line after Akeem Messidor transferring to Miami. I think that's a huge loss. And also the secondary is, how many guys transferred or are gone? But I'm more concerned about the offense than I am the defense. But yeah, so there it is in a nutshell in a couple minutes. Yeah, why I'm not high on West Virginia.
And I think it's all fair. Because what I'm learning is across the country, there's a lot of media folks, a lot of podcasters, whatnot, picking West Virginia to have an average to even bad season. And no, I don't think there's not very many people picking them to win more than 6 games. There's a few, but not many.
Yeah.
And most of them are saying, "Hey, it's just because there's so many unknowns." I don't know how good JT Daniels is going to be. I don't know if he's even going to stay healthy. I don't know how good these transfers that are coming in are going to be. You talked about the running back spot. Tony Mathis is the guy there right now. From what we saw last year, now, in all fairness, it was against Kansas, but he looked great in that game. And then he looked good in the game against Minnesota. He was really the only offensive player that played good at all, had any positive moments at all against Minnesota. He did run for over 50 yards in that game with very little help. So he had some flashes. So I think it's his time to shine. He's been dealing with injuries most of his career so far. So I do think he's going to have a breakout year. Behind him is Justin Johnson Jr., who was a 4-star recruit that came in last year. And he's expected to be really good as well. I think he'll get quite a few carries too. But it's all fair because, like you said, there's a lot of unknowns. And anytime a team loses, that so much of their production from the previous season, it's hard to imagine they'll be better, right?
Yeah, there's just I mean when you're making like preseason predictions and stuff, you really go off based on what you know from last season, who's returning, and then a lot of it's just it's speculation.
Right. It is.
So I mean, there's just a lot of question marks for West Virginia, and I don't think Neil Brown's on the hot seat, but you go 7-5. I mean 8-4. Like I've seen some West Virginia writers say that that's kind of where they think that West Virginia will land. Man, next year could be really interesting for Neil Brown for sure.
Yeah, it's I'm on the 8. I'm in the 8-4 camp myself. I think if you go less than that, Neil Brown's going to have a lot of questions. 7-5, depending on how the team looks offensively.
Yeah.
If you still suck offensively and you go 7-5, then I have a problem.
Sure. Yeah.
If you look better offensively and you just because we do have a tough schedule. I mean, we have 2 non-conference Power 5 teams on the road. I can tell you, there's a lot of things behind the scenes that most people nationally don't know. Like the three transfer DBs we brought in all have over 1,000 snaps of college football experience. Charles Woods might be the best cover corner in the Big 12 this year. According to Pro Football Focus, he is based on his numbers from last year. So there's that. Then we've got a middle linebacker that nobody knows about named Lee Koba, who our defensive coordinator absolutely lights up like a Christmas tree when you mention the guy's name. So I think he's going to be good. So there's a lot of these unknowns. When you listen to the coaching staff talk about them and kind of watch their body language and read between the lines, you can kind of get for me personally, and some of it might be homerism. I admit that. Maybe I'm just overly optimistic. It's possible. But there's just so many good things, and Neil Brown answered all the questions we had. He answered them. We were all wanting him to go out and hire an offensive coordinator. He did that, and a pretty darn good one at that, in our opinion. He brought in the star quarterback that we've been missing since he's been here. Now assuming that star quarterback can stay healthy, and
that's the thing. That's the thing.
Okay.
Like I've heard, so much over the last couple of years. JT Daniels, he's a star. He's a star in the making, and I haven't seen it. I mean, he's got to prove it this year.
Well,
he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to prove it for me to see it.
Yeah.
Because last year I think going into the season he was a Heisman favorite, and of course he was injured, but he's got to prove it to me, and he'll get his opportunity week 1 when you guys had to up the road to no longer Heinz Field.